Report on the solar eclipse that occurred today. It was not a total eclipse, but it did manage to nearly blot out the sun over a host of American cities, darkening skies at least for a few moments, especially in a band that stretched across the southeast from Louisiana to Virginia. In some cities, the eclipse caused temperatures to drop as much as 14 degrees, and so-called eclipse winds fell calm at the moment of maximum darkness. Just how much awe today's eclipse created was to some extent a function of how clearly it could be seen. In much of the nation, skies were too cloudy to afford much visibility. Joining us live now in our Washington bureau, where incidentally the clouds were too heavy for us to see much of anything, is one of the nation's more knowledgeable eclipse watchers, Dr. Richard Berenson, a professional astronomer and the president of American University. Dr. Berenson, let's take a look together at this tape, since neither one of us was able to see it in person, as they say. Let's take a look at some tape that was shot in Atlanta, and I would like you to explain to our viewers, we are seeing time-lapse photography now. How quickly, first of all, what's moving up there?
What you're seeing is the moon moving in front of the sun, and obviously the disk is disappearing. This is time-lapse, which is compressing perhaps an hour into just a few minutes. The shadow of the moon is moving across the Earth at about 2,000 miles per hour.
All right, we are now reaching, or at least will in a few seconds, that magic point where we will just see the edge of the sun revealed almost like a massive string of pearls around the moon. What is that effect called, and why is it of such fascination to scientists?
Well, it's called Bailey's beads. It's named after the person who first saw it and described it. This was not a total eclipse. If it had been, then you wouldn't have seen that little ring at all. Suddenly a flash of light would have come into view, and you would have seen the outer atmosphere of the sun, which is there all the time, of course, and it's quite bright, but it's very dim compared with the solar disk, and hence is masked.
Why the fascination, though? I mean, surely we know everything we need to know about the moon and the sun, and can see and study both at our leisure without this phenomenon taking place.
Well, if it were a total solar eclipse, then in fact you could study the solar atmosphere, which is difficult to do otherwise. Even during this annular eclipse, it's possible to do two very important things besides that. One is to measure the solar diameter really quite accurately, and that's important because if we know the size of the solar sphere quite precisely, then we understand the solar interior and the nuclear process. That's important because the sun is a star, and if we understand our own sun, our own star, then we understand others.
Even in this allegedly enlightened age in which we live, I think there's still a certain awe, as we mentioned before, when it happens. How was that treated some thousands of years ago?
Well, the first recorded observation of eclipse was about 2,000 years ago. The court astronomers, two of them, according to the records, had been imbibing a bit with the wine.
Whose court?
In China, and they failed to inform the people of what was coming. And so when the sun disappeared, the Chinese thought that a dragon had consumed it, so they ran about the streets banging on pots and pans, and obviously it worked because the sun came back, but the poor court astronomers apparently were executed. And about 2,500 years ago, the Greeks were at war and had been for some 5 years. They saw a solar eclipse and were struck by it so much that they immediately sought peace.
Very quickly, and I almost hate to raise such a subject, the theological implications of this.
Well, I don't know about theology as much as metaphysical, perhaps. It demonstrates an awe. It's quite majestic. It clearly demonstrates that we here on little fragile planet Earth all share a common destiny. We're all a part of this planet in orbit around a common star, a periphery of a typical galaxy. It shows us once again what we should remember, even our hectic world, and that is that we are part of a larger cosmos, and it's grand and it's majestic.